Oh, hey, we're live. It's Lunch with Mal. Hey, everybody. I hope you are having an awesome Thursday or as awesome a Thursday as you can. Um, it is reasonably warm here in Saskatchewan. I think we're looking at like, I don't know, minus 10 Celsius. And that's like what, like 20-ish Fahrenheit? So, not terrible. It's not terrible at all. We're gonna be above freezing next week, so we're super stoked about that. Um, and I'm vibing. I'm feeling pretty jazzed. I've been doing a lot of writing lately, which has been hard for me for some time, but I'm doing really well with it right now. And a co-author finished a book, so we're stoked about that. So it's like been a good week. Been on the jazz. Glad you did, Monique. I'm glad you did. So yeah, I'm uh I'm I'm ranting separately from writing. I'm ranting internally about some nerdy stuff having to do with starship sizes. I was watching this video and the guy was talking about like realistic starship sizes and comparing them to like things like modern aircraft carriers and stuff like that. And he was saying that like once you get too big your the starship size gets unrealistic and they can't be that big. And he's using Star Trek ships to like compare to, and I'm thinking to myself, like, Star Trek ships don't have fuel tanks of any note. They're like they're not reasonable because of that. Like a Nimitz class aircraft carrier, 1/10 of the mass of that aircraft carrier is just for the fuel for the jets on the aircraft carrier. Now they use a nuclear power plant for actually moving the aircraft carrier around, but you can't do that in space. In space, to move, you have to shove something out the back. Um, and since space is full of vacuum, you're not like a boat, right? Like you don't have water all around you that you can just like grab with a propeller and push out the back. You got to bring the mass with you to shove out the back. So every time on Star Trek, they're like impulse engines. It's like, oh my God, you don't have fuel for impulse engines and you don't have anywhere to eject mass out the back of the ship. So anyway, I was sitting here like raging about this whole thing this guy was talking about because he's like talking about starship size and I'm like, this Star Trek ships should be ridiculously crowded because they should be mostly fuel tanks inside. Anyway, this is not what you all came here for. But it's the energy I have right now. I'm a sci-fi author. I'm a hard sci-fi author, and I'm actually eternally annoyed at almost all spaceships in space. Like the series I'm writing right now is about smugglers in in a um a relatively small cluster of stars, and one of the biggest problems that they're dealing with on the regular is fuel costs, because fuel costs a lot of money. And I think that it actually makes the story a lot more realistic, right? If you do any sort of like major transport, you know that fuel is a huge consideration, and rising fuel costs like change so much stuff. But like so much sci-fi like doesn't have that. And it's interesting. I actually had some readers who said they actually like the fact that logistics are in my sci-fi, that there's these real world concerns, because it makes the story feel more grounded and real. So that's that's my way of pulling this back into like a relevant conversation. Hey Tim, how are you? And everybody else who's here, say hi. I think we got like 20 people across all the different places. It's always nice to see everyone. And so I was like thinking, like, what do I talk about today? Um, and I decided, let's talk about 2026. We're closing in on the end of the first month, which is surreal in and of itself. And there's 11 more to go, and it seems like there's perhaps going to be a little bit of turmoil, um, this year. So I think it behooves us to think about that and be prepared. Good morning, Kate. So one thing I did want to mention that I meant to bring up last week, when I was talking as a follow up to the book report stuff. We talked about book report and the series reporting that's built into it now. Um, and someone had asked, it'd be cool if they could actually see what their per market breakdown is for an individual series versus overall. And it turns out you can do that actually. It's if you go into the read through system, and you go look at the per book read through, you can actually see what your per marketplace numbers are. So you could then say, like, for series ABC, how's it doing in Australia versus Canada or something like that versus your overall numbers. So um, I thought would be of interest to folks to see that. Um, so yeah, so I think that was it. I feel like there's something else I wanted to bring up from a prior one as well, but it's gone now. Um, so so actually, and also I'm curious. So it's not just me yapping. Who out there has thoughts about what they think is going to happen in 2026? I'm actually quite interested in what everybody else thinks is going to happen. And this could be anything. This could be like, is the market shifting more to print, or is that just a small change? Um, uh, what do you think that the library opportunity is going to be with the KU changing their rules around that? Are you thinking someone's knocking on our door? Are you thinking that that you might, I don't know, sorry, I got distracted by door knock. Are you thinking that you might want to, like, move out of KU finally? Are you happy in KU? I'm half curious what this conversation is going to be. Monique says the thing has to have a tailpipe.
Okay, that's fine.
It's the mail. I feel like you're behind, Monique, in the chat, but I'm not sure. What is that from? The thing has to have a tailpipe. I forget now. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm curious if people have thoughts on 2026 and what's going to be happening. I have tons of thoughts. I think one of the big ones that's worth considering is, what does the potential demise of US TikTok mean for folks? And I think it goes beyond just US TikTok, because a lot of people who lived in other countries and who were marketing on TikTok basically had set themselves up with US accounts, so that their TikToks could be seen in the US, because TikTok's always been fairly regionalized, right? Like, if you want your stuff to show up in the US, you have to have a phone that's set up from the US Play Store and is registered to the US, and all that sort of thing. Um, so it hasn't really become super clear yet how well non-US TikTok is going to work anymore, and what kind of crosstalk there might be between the platforms or anything like that. Like, you know, I actually need to do some more investigation in this myself, because my Play Store on my phone is now registered to Canada. Part of that was because to get Canadian banking apps, I had to change my Play Store's region to Canada. Um, because, like, TD Bank, for example, there's a US TD Bank and a Canadian TD Bank, and if my Play Store is set to for Google Play on Android, if that's set to US, then of course I'm going to get the US TD app, not the Canadian one. But then, like, my TikTok app still seems to be the US app. If I, like, uninstall it and reinstall it, will I get the Canadian app? Will my content still be there? It's kind of weird. And then, one option for a lot of, and I don't think this is happening, but one option for a lot of folks in the US would just be to change their Play Store to Canada, get the Canadian TikTok app. But you can only change your Play Store like every so often, so you have to wait a while before you could change it back. Like, I'm actually really kind of interested to see how people are going to deal with stuff like that, and maybe with enough of an exodus from TikTok and X, maybe we actually could get a new dominant location for people to end up on, which I think would be great, because I really don't like um, I guess, and when I say dominant, a new dominant, I don't mean like the number one, but that's the wrong word. Make it like a new major player, because I don't feel like Blue Sky ever really became that new major player. And Threads is actually pretty big, but Threads is owned by Meta, so it's like Threads, Instagram, and Facebook are three of the top five social media platforms at this point. I think Threads is either in the top five, or it's like brushing up against it now. So it's kind of like, man, you know, I would love for there to be a major player that isn't Meta. Um, so I'm optimistic that the downfall of TikTok will actually bring about a new player, and it might be, I don't know. I'm kind of hoping for Divine. to take off, which is a recreation of the old Vine app. And Vine is basically was TikTok. It just was like made by Yahoo, believe it or not. Um, I don't know, when did Vine go away? It would have been about 10, 11 years ago, 10 years ago. Hey, Dennis. I think it would have been 10 years ago that Vine went away. Man, if they had just held on for like another 5 or 6 years, they would have been set. Um, because I mean they were exactly what TikTok is, but I think they enforced a 7 and then later on they upped it to like an 11-second limit or something like that. Some of my favorite content was on Vine. It was like super awesome. Um, and a lot of the Vine stars that started out way back then moved on to TikTok and other platforms and stuff like that. But yeah, so the people making Davine actually somehow managed to get their either I forget the exact path this went through, but actually got their hands on a lot of OG Vine content or are uploading like have put like 1 million old Vines on the platform and stuff like that. So I think that'd be a pretty cool platform to see take off. So anyway, that's sort of just speculation about where it's going, but I don't I don't especially like Facebook as much as like my entire livelihood is in many regards thanks to Facebook. It's the same thing with Amazon, right? You know, like people like poo poo Amazon. I'm like, Amazon gives as good a payment to authors as anyone else, give or take a tiny little bit, right? Um, that assumes that we trust all the data they're giving us, which we have no way of verifying. And KU is not super awesome, but like Amazon, hey honey, Amazon brought about the indie author revolution. Kindle created that space for us to exist in. So it's like it's so weird because like we owe the current state of indie authordom to Amazon, and Amazon is also not a great partner for us all. And I feel like the same thing is true for Facebook. Like indie authors needed a way to get the word out about our books, and once Amazon shifted over to pay to play with AMS ads and getting rid of the prominence of also bots and stuff like that, um, we needed another player in the game, and Facebook was there ready to fill the gap. And Facebook, in many regards, was actually kind of ahead of AMS. But I feel like I don't know, I feel like before AMS really kicked off, Amazon's like natural recommendation systems favored indie authors fairly well, and then after that, it became very pay to play. Um, and so it's like, okay, indie authors for many of us, the visibility that we get to, and whether that's paid ads or groups or anything. Sorry, I keep segueing as I'm in the middle of saying all of this. I'm trying to be more focused. It's thanks to Facebook. We've used Facebook to get the word about our books. Facebook is the world's largest public forum, um, and that's got a lot of value to it. But at the same time, Facebook is not like a company that is great. They are they are at best morally gray. They've been caught um, doing super shady things with people's data a lot of times. They've been caught um, being used and not suppressing information, being used to share information and knowing it and not suppressing it, that has led to many people dying in multiple cases. Like it's a company that has actively shared information used in genocide. Um, and so it's like, damn it, like this is not really a company I want to be like giving my money to. At the same time, it's like I'd also like to have a business and sell books. And I don't know of any other companies that are any better to give my money to. One of these days, it's going to be the Good News Lunch with Mal. Um, I swear it's going to happen at some point. So I guess, long story short, I'm eager for there to be other companies that are doing well. And I guess part of it, I have to think to myself, like, what can I do to help that? I don't know exactly yet. Um, I've One of the problems for me personally is on social media. I've actually become much more of an observer than a commenter. And part of it has to do like with the emotional load of handling replies to content I make. I don't I get too invested and can lose a lot of time doing that. So I limit the amount of engagement I actually create. But then at the same time, like, well, if I want to help other platforms other than Facebook, I have to go be an active community member on those platforms, which is means doing a thing that I don't really want to do. So I'm curious if anybody, if anybody else is doing stuff like that. If you're thinking about other platforms that maybe you could that you could maybe engage on more. And this really, I'm not saying that we have to, that I'm moving away from advertising on Facebook anytime soon, but boy, I would love for there to be other options. I keep thinking like, oh, I wish there was another option. And sort of like at a certain point, I have to become an active participant in making there be another option. I do most of my direct reader communication now on Discord, which I think is a more palatable company. I don't know of any major scandals Discord's involved in. I know they're doing some annoying stuff trying to gamify their platform, but they're just trying to make money to stay alive. So I'm like, okay, I'd like you guys to stay alive. Um, I am going to pivot around to direct sales and Kickstarter, honey. That was actually part of my plan today. Tim says, as a reader, I'm considering and honestly working on moving away from KU as I haven't had nearly as much luck funding the few interesting books for me. Oh, finding and all the slop there. Yeah, that's also getting a little bit harder too, right? Because you're getting the AI slop in the mix as well. Just as I feel super optimistic personally about Kickstarter and creating member areas for recurring revenue off books instead of just one-time purchases, at least trying it to see how it goes. And I think that's the thing I want to do too. Is I want to work more on building an actual like story community place for readers, which takes time and effort. Maybe not everybody wants to do, but like there's so many there's always like another like e-reading tool coming out that is going to be like this new competitor to KU, this new platform where people can go read things and whatnot. But the difficult thing is that as an individual author, you're still always putting your eggs in someone else's basket. Um, where they control the access to the reader, and the money flows through them before it flows through you. And that's the thing, that's the thing we've been as authors kind of been talking about now for some time. Um, like honestly, like probably like 7 or 8 years, since people really started talking about how we've sort of exchanged the publishers for the retailers, and while we have more control of our own destiny, we still don't have what we really need to actually be really successful on our own terms. And I think Jill's right. I think Kickstarter and direct sales are how we do that. Um, but I do kind of wonder too, like if eventually, if as authors we could, and it's going to probably take people who want to actually do this, um, to like make a consortium of sorts. Yeah, I think that's the main reason why most authors work on their own store, Monique. Um, direct access to your customer, which is like a normal expected thing in most businesses. Even everybody else other than authors on Amazon has direct access to their customer, right? Like they can just message the people who bought them things. And we can't, like we're like the bastard stepchildren of the of the Amazon platform and most other platforms too. Um, so yeah, but at the same time, making your own story is a lot. But I do wonder, like maybe it's time to have some sort of have like consortiums of authors. The flip side, of course, then is when you get consortium of author, you start to ease toward being a publisher, and very few people actually really want to be a publisher. Like every time I think about this sort of thing, I'm thinking like, oh, then I could do that to help people succeed. We could do that. And like, wait a second, I'm like, I'm like a pivot and one step away from being a publisher at that point. And personally, my issue with being publishers, I would find the emotional load of being directly responsible for the success of people's books to be too much. I'm curious if other people feel the same way. If you're like, I know how to do this and I'm comfortable doing it for myself, but boy, doing this for other people and then like being responsible for the success, like that's a big thing. I've been a boss and run companies and employed people before. It's a lot of stress thinking about like, my decisions determine whether or not someone has food on their plate. It's my least favorite part of running ads for other people. Um, sometimes people come to me with like their businesses facing a downturn, stuff isn't working, and they're like, we need you to run our ads to help us get out of this. And I'm like, oh dear Lord, what if I screw up? What if I can't do a good enough job? It's not my favorite thing in the world. Eric says, I mean, there are YouTube creators who form union-like organizations and help each other out. Um, a little bit of collectivism to protect our art is probably a good idea. Maybe this is my problem, Eric. I keep trying to think about this myself in a vacuum when there's many other smart people out there who probably also have ideas, and that might be the first part of an collective author organization is like, what do we do to help each other, beyond just like having like associations like sci-fi and fantasy writers of America, or one of the various romance organizations or something like that. Yeah, Monique. I kind of feel the same way. Between Jill and I, we already are, with the number of books and pen names we have and co-authors that we've worked with, we actually in many regards really are publishers. Because I mean, you count my co-authors and you count like the narrators and stuff like that, like it's probably like 25 people at this point that are part of this sort of publishing organization. And even if you don't count us, it's still, there's to count them with even with Jill and I. Yeah, we're probably around 6 pen names as well. Yeah, the Alliance guys, but I'm thinking, but also like it's also like one step further beyond that, like an actual some sort of way that actually facilitates the reading of the books, something to think about. Maybe it could be something we spitball about every now and then on Lunch with Mal until maybe we come up with an idea of how to actually do that. I mean, one of the things I keep thinking about is like maybe just make a store for readers to come to, but then it's just like another store. I do remember back when I think this was in 2019 or maybe 2021 at NINC, there was a roundtable conversation about what's going to be the next big thing. What's going to be the next big sea change for books. And ironically, none of us predicted what it was because what it was AI. But aside from that, I said that the thing that I think will be the big sea change that will eventually affect everything is completely removing the concept of retail from getting books into readers' hands. And this, I think we're a little bit further away from this than we might even have been when I first talked about it, to be honest. But like the idea of blockchain technology, where like this was a big thing with NFTs, where there can actually be like a thing, a digital one-off. That concept could be something that could be applied to book sales, where you sell digital one-offs of your book, and they aren't like copyable exactly. And then like if there was such a way of making it so that in a blockchain crypto kind of way, the money flowed back to authors, that would be super cool, right? The downside is that crypto just sort of became scam land, and I don't think it's going to take off. But I would love a scenario like that where it's almost like a decentralized library system where people could just get books and then people just got paid when someone read their book. I don't know. It's kind of pie in the sky. It's like high level concept-y stuff floating around in my brain, but I would actually really like for that to happen someday. Eric says, "Oh yeah, rugged individualism probably isn't the answer here. Even the idea of creating a way to challenge Amazon's stranglehold on the industry. The only way D&D was able to become massive IP that it was, is it was you put was in parentheses, is because the community was involved in a big way." Yeah. And YouTube creators are really good at that sort of thing. Some food for thought. Jill says, I'm not interested in a group portal. I want my portal to be completely immersive in my world, so I wouldn't join another store because that equals someone else's rules. Yeah, like I wouldn't. I always think about the store idea, and then I'm like, well, that's just trading one retailer for another, right? If it was like a collective store, so that's why I want there to be some other option that doesn't exist yet. I want to be about my world and access, not about individual book access. It has to be completely immersive to work for me. Barbara Campbell says high level explorations are awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks, Barbara, for thanks for thanking me. And the funny thing, Jill says this stuff as a bit of a counterpoint to what I'm saying, but I agree with Jill fundamentally, because this is what I do with my own website. My AN 14 website is all about an immersive experience. It is more book focused. I want to start to shift that further and make it more universe focused, more overall experience focused. But it is sort of the same idea. Oh, Eric. So Eric says it's not anymore, referring to Dungeons and Dragons, because the creators abandoned it with a new edition, and Hasbro tightened their grip on the IP. Right, because Hasbro bought it from Wizards of the Coast. Am I remembering that correctly? I mean, this meant I know I should know this, but I can't remember something if Wizards owned Magic or D&D. Yeah, it used to have an OGL framework license. Yeah. So Jill says, exactly. I think what it's really about is community and giving readers some power in the world they love. That's what I'm doing going forward and following my North Star. And I think that is a big thing. The Kickstarter I have coming up, one of the sort of titles people can get is canon contributor. So if they've named a ship or something like that, certain tiers, and this is something I've actually offered for a long time, but I've never given this title of canon contributor. And then at a certain tier, you can actually work with me to develop a story that I will write, or a segment of a story, depending on how it works out. And then they're going to get an additional title as well, because I want to make the readers a part of the journey. Tim says, unless the store is more of a back-end system and you could take it and hook it into by customizing it to your own, emphasizing your world and universe, but still allowing exposure to similar world series. Yeah. Yeah, like some sort of system where the stores could all communicate and cross-promote one another, but you still sort of owned your own storefront. It'd be like an interconnected web of Shopify or something like that. I should be putting these up on the screen so people can read them. Once the store itself was decentralized, being open source, you'll still need moderators, but treat it like a true democracy. Everyone gets input, which I think is fabulous. But it does become a full-time job for at least some of those moderators. It's not a simple endeavor, but I guess nothing worth doing is. So, food for thought for sure. I don't want to let go of this idea, though. I don't want to let go of this idea of authors somehow working together en masse to create our own way of distributing books that doesn't require these large retailers, and that helps everybody out who's running individual storefronts. Somehow, at the very least, creates an interconnected web of storefronts that people could navigate through and find from some sort of system. It would have to be a system that didn't play favorites, and that didn't. So much of how we experience the web right now is that we've got this we live in the age of the personalized web, where everything is tailored to you. So much of when I search for XYZ, I get what the system thinks I might want, not just the best thing that I searched for. And I think it would need to be something that's this is the closest match. That we're giving you the closest match to what you search for, regardless of your tastes and interests or anything like that, to make it a truly democratized system. Honey, this was in my brain as I was talking about that. I was going to come around to that. And I'm glad you said that, to make sure that I didn't wander off before I got to say it. Because I don't know if you guys remember, back in the day, people with different websites, because the search back then didn't work that well, right? You couldn't find shit when you search for things on the internet. So websites would be part of groups or communities and whatnot, and there'd be this little thing at the top, a little arrow, said next site in the XYZ ring. I think they called them rings, right? Yeah. So Jill said she was just typing ring. Yeah, blog ring. Yeah. So there's the rings, but they're more than just blogs. They were for all sorts of different interests, Yeah, there were a lot of their own GeoCities, but there are also ones like on different games, for stuff like that, like info about different games. So there's like this ring, and like it was like a back or forward, or like there's a random button. Take me to a random website in this ring. Man, that would be a really cool thing to try to bring back. And that wouldn't be that hard to implement. That'd be pretty cool. Yes, and Eric also says open source algorithms versus what we have today. I completely agree, right? Like right now you're just sort of like the machine decides and there's no visibility. The decoders barely even know how the thing works anymore. Um, Alexander says getting to work together and contribute by shaping a story sounds like a cool idea. I think so too. I hope some people take me up on that. I think it'd be a pretty fun thing. Jill says, I want to organize something like a ring for cozy fantasies, all launching on Kickstarter at the same time, but I need to get enough people's attention to pull it off. Well, maybe this is the beginning of that, right? Maybe we actually start like this ring idea. I think it'd be fabulous for people who run their own Shopify sites. Could have some sort of Shopify app that sits at the top, and you would register as being part of a given ring. There might have to be like checking to make sure that you're actually like selling what you say you're selling, because you can't have someone selling something outside what the ring should allow or unsavory in some fashion. And then it would have that like next in this ring or random, and people could kind of just hop between different stores. I think that could actually be pretty neat. Stephanie says, I'm picturing something like a game where different genres are different worlds or just towns that you walk through them, and each author is a business or a house. That would be kind of fun too, right? Like almost like a non-kink Second Life. But yeah, that'd be or like a Sim City or Sims, I guess Sims or Sim City, something like that would actually be pretty cool. Build it in Minecraft. Then everybody could build their own Minecraft houses. That's pretty neat. Yeah, all cool things. You do? You already have? Okay, so Jill's apparently ahead of me on this. She's like building out the concept already. Eric says the YouTube algorithm is terrible. Bonus points. I will volunteer my project management skills behind something like this. I know some authors on Threads who would love a project like this. I did not mean to like possibly sign myself up for organizing something like this. But I don't know. This may be the best simple to execute idea to start building an author consortium that doesn't involve us all having to go through a centralized retailer or centralized system. We can be decentralized but support each other. I think it'd be pretty cool. Right? I mean, there'd be some people who would like that. Oh yeah, you're me on YouTube, honey. Yeah, watch out for that. There we go. You've solved it. Jill oftentimes becomes me on different platforms because she has logins to all my stuff. So, because she takes the crazy shit I say here on Lunch with Mel and turns it into YouTube shorts, for better or for worse. So yeah, that's a risk I encounter myself on YouTube, and I'm like, oh my god, why is this short me? But circling back around to and we're started. I'm super excited about the Kickstarter I have in the works. I've stalled out a bit around like 130 followers, and I really want to hit at least 500, but I have until April 9th. I gave myself what I think is enough time to get to 500, and I've just wrapped up a story that followers get when I get to 500. So to get this story, you have to follow the Kickstarter. It's like, and there's like no commitment, just follow the Kickstarter, and you'll get this story. So that's one of the things I'm doing to help sort of like bolster stuff. And one of the other things I'm doing is I'm actually working for this Kickstarter to really try to find people in Canada, the United States, and Australia, because shipping into those countries is going to be easier than shipping into the United States. I think for when my Kickstarter eventually fulfills. So I'm kind of planning for that as well. But I'm pretty stoked about doing this Kickstarter. It's gonna be really fun. It's also kind of interesting too, because it's for a series that I wrote for a publisher, and I wrote it with like first person and with a male main POV character, which is not something I normally do. And I was pretty stressed about it back when I was doing it. And I didn't I don't know, I didn't enjoy the writing as much as I might have otherwise, but boy, now that I'm rereading it, I'm like kind of surprised. I actually think I did a decent job, and or my editor helped it become more decent than I remember. I think mostly I remember the stress of trying to write it, and like I'm really enjoying the world and whatnot now. So, and it all comes from Jill's idea of doing like a fully immersive Kickstarter. Um, and the outline she basically gave me actually for doing it around how to like create a character and to like to rename everything inside the Kickstarter. I'm like so excited to be doing this Kickstarter now, and even if it isn't like the biggest thing I've ever done, which I don't actually think it will be, because it's definitely like a side quest in my universe. The fact that I'm enjoying the work so much is making a lot of fun, and I do really believe that um, Kickstarter is one of the best opportunities authors have right now, because you get direct access to all of your backers. Kickstarter doesn't hide that from us. They take a very reasonable, I think, it's possibly could be less, but it's still a very reasonable percentage of the backing, and as it allows you to make cool stuff, like immersive stuff that goes beyond just a book. Um, and and create sort of that helps create like that community that I think is actually super valuable to us authors. All right, so I'm behind on comments. Um, so this is what Jill's been thinking about. Different cozy fantasies will be cozy fantasy Kickstarter ring. We're all different kingdoms in the realm. That's the connecting thread. I like that. Tim says, I think the author themed reading ring would be really nice. The biggest challenge I see is checking, confirming those who enter are actually focused on the ring is what the ring is about. Yeah. And then I don't think that's an insurmountable challenge, but it is something that one has to keep in mind, right? Like it's going to take, like Eric said earlier, some moderators would have to be keeping an eye on that. And that system would not require this to be anyone's full-time job, though, which I think that part's pretty cool. Whoops, my comments, like everything just scrolled on me here. Bully costs against Amazon Target show that customers are absolutely fed up. Readers have got to be tired of that shit too. Yeah. We were having our roundtable with a group of authors yesterday, and they were talking about like, why are we making so much less money? And I'm like, well, there are readers out there who are boycotting America as a whole and are trying to find non-American authors local to their own countries to read. So America has lost at least mind share in the world market because of that. So that's going to make things harder for American authors, especially if you have very Amerocentric books. That's going to make that hard as well. The other thing, of course, is on top of that, you have boycott of Amazon. So even if someone isn't like necessarily boycotting America, they might be like, well, I'm going to try to do less stuff with Amazon, but that's also inside of America, right? So yeah, you've got this problem where, for authors, the biggest market and the most effective market has always been the US market. And then sort of like picking up, a nice extra 15-20% from everybody else in the world. And that's like that, at the very least, that 15-20% is drying up. But then on top of that, the Amazon, boycotts are definitely affecting that too. So yeah, it's a big deal. Alexander, I don't handy know because it's long and I have to pull up another window. But if you just go to Kickstarter and search for Outlaws of Aquilia, Aquilia, or I can just message you the link later on. Tim says, funny enough about the Outlaws of Aquilia series, I don't remember if I'd read how much I'd read. I think it might have only been the first book. What, Tim? Tim's like my number one reader, folks. So the fact that Tim never read all three of these books breaks my heart. I actually don't know for sure, Tim, if you're not my number one reader, but you're the reader I thought who would read everything. Oh my goodness. Can't believe this. I'm struck to the core. Liking the idea of co-authoring a book with a strong backer on Kickstarter. Do you mean strong backer like you mean with like another author who also does really well? Tim says, I've been reading a lot more web novels, in part because it's much easier to communicate with the authors and a reader can have a more immediate impact on the story. Can you describe that a little bit more, Tim? Like what do you mean by immediate impact? Is because like, are they serials? I want to know more about this. I've had a few readers actively ask me not to give them Amazon links. Yeah, I've actually had a couple of readers more recently than previously, who said like, is there any way I can buy this book from you directly? And I make them a link on my website, or a PayPal buy link, depending on how they want to do things. And they send me some money and I send them the EPUBs, like a back alley deal. Like, hey, you want to buy some EPUBs? Good stuff. Regarding the web novels, Tim says sometimes the immediate impact isn't always positive. Okay. Well, yeah, but the stories are going to change a little bit. So for this trilogy, there's some decisions I made based on publisher requirements and time that I might change in these re-release versions. So part of it too is like I'm developing so much more backstory that I'm actually probably going to adjust at least some small things to fit better with the more evolved backstory that I'm creating for the characters. So you'll get early editions of the new versions too, so you'll be fine there. But yeah, I'm going to chat with Jill a little bit more about this idea, this book ring idea, and specifically started off with direct sales. And see what she thinks of us actually sitting down and doing that, because I think that could be a pretty cool thing to do. I think that's the biggest problem, right, with direct sales for all of us authors, is we're all islands and we're all having to shout into the void to get people to our direct sales websites, because we lose the power of the Amazon, everybody's together search thing. So we all have to like do a lot more work to get the word out about our books. We don't get that sort of that automatic little bit of extra action from Amazon all the time kind of thing. So, or a lot of extra action from Amazon, depending on how well the algorithm is favoring you right now. So yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Good talk, everyone. This is awesome. Maybe this becomes one of the big things for 2026 and we all spearhead it. I am curious if anybody else sees any trends for 2026 that they think that they're good, or if there's other, like, are there social media platforms that you think are poised to do really well in the wake of TikTok perhaps not doing so well? I mean, it's also entirely possible that TikTok gets their shit together in the next couple of weeks and people just sort of go back because it's comfortable. Tim, who is Pig Monster, says web novels I read are on Royal Road. They're serials where the authors release them anywhere from when they finish the next chapter, release them on the schedule. Okay, so you get like a lot more feedback. I think that could actually be a fun thing. I should consider doing that. I wouldn't do it on Royal Road though. I do it on my own website because retailers. Yes, I would love that link. Thank you very much, Tim. I think I already have it. I see my Discord lit up over there. Lisa says, have you done any advertising on Reddit? I keep getting ads on my IG feed. You getting Reddit ads in your IG feed? I'm confused. Oh, you're seeing the ads from Reddit saying advertise on us because we're awesome. Yeah, I've heard of that. I played around with advertising on Reddit embarrassingly like 8 years ago. And that was when advertising was new to Reddit and the Redditors were not happy. And advertising on Reddit was a great way to have Redditors come for you. I think they're probably a lot more used to it now. So I think it could work for sure. Hi, Judith. Yeah, you know what? Reddit does need to be like one of the things I really look into for ads. I have this one author I'm working with who's like really getting into BookBub ads, and he's using attribution links. I'm running their Facebook ads, but I see the attribution for his BookBub ads, and they're not doing that bad either. Like he can't get the exposure that you can get on Facebook, but he's getting a decent return on his investment. So BookBub might be something that I look into again. I've also not played with BookBub ads in 8 years, perhaps at this point. It's getting crazy to start talking about like time frames this long in the indie publishing world that we're closing in on indie publishing, like the indie revolution being 20 years old now, which is like, I think didn't the Kindle come out in 2008, 2009? Something like that. I think the revolution really kicked in around 2010, but I would have to really go check some dates to be sure about that. But it's still really kind of wild to think, that we're this far in. As Eric says, Reddit is better if you have a present like on presence on places like our fantasy, and Redditors generally do not like self promo and ads. That sounds a lot like it used to be, that you had to be active on Reddit, otherwise, and well liked in the subreddits that you might be running ads on. Otherwise, the ads might go badly for you. Um, so yeah, that's something to consider. That's the thing too. Like I really feel if you want to advertise on a platform, you need to use the platform to understand sort of how what people's behaviors are like on that platform, to see the ads that are run on that platform and how people react to them before you start advertising on that platform. That was the biggest thing for me on Facebook. I did not do well on Facebook ads until I became a Facebook user and understood how people actually used the platform and interacted with it and how it felt to have different types of ads coming across the feed, which ones I ignored, which ones I got into. There's certain like a certain level of like gut feel that you just can't really learn from anything other than just using it and being a customer of the product. Um, yeah, you might need to write that book, honey. Indie authors are rebels. I think so for real. It's funny. Yeah, I know, right? Like in July, my first published novel will be 14 years. That was an indie published novel. It's been a while. Oh, now you're just coming up with a whole game here, Stephanie. Quest for authors to get bigger houses, maybe from releases or learning skills, quest for readers to unlock bonuses. Yeah. If you just want to play a game, that's entirely possible. I have to admit, I I want to build a system that is equitable. Um so I'm sure you guys have all seen like you've seen the image of like, equality. It's got a baseball game going on, and there's a fence, and there's a father, or there's a man, a boy, and a child, all watching the game, and everybody has a box that they're standing on to see over the fence better. And of course, the adult can see over the fence super well. It's like waist height now. Um, the younger kid is able to like hold on to the fence like this, and of course, the child sees a fence, so that's equality. Equity is, giving the adult doesn't use a box at all, and the smallest child gets a box so everybody can see, right? And I want to build a platform has that is built like that, where everybody gets a fair shake regardless of how big they are. So and perhaps the people that need more exposure, that have good books, get more exposure because they don't have a platform yet, you know although the flip side to that is that de-incentivizes people to participate if they do well. So I don't know. It's a lot to think about. I would want to make a system that's as evenly laid out as possible. Which sort of, Stephanie, I was thinking about this because your idea of like having bigger houses and quests and stuff like that, it starts to create a hierarchy. And I don't. I would try. Well, I would really want to be as hierarchy light as possible in at least in a promotional system. Eric says Threads is great for me. I know that when I don't post in self-rec threads, I sell less. Oh, interesting. I have a really hard time posting in self-rec threads. I don't do that a lot. I don't know. It's I think part of the reason for me is that I feel like I sell well, and I don't want to take away space from people who need it. Um, that is a part of it. That I don't know. I think I don't sell as well as I used to because I stopped publishing for 5 years. So maybe I should like convince myself I get to post in self-rec threads again. Self-recommendation threads for folks who know. Um, yeah, Eric writes cosmic horror, and that doesn't sell well on Facebook ads. Getting running profitable Facebook ads for cosmic horror, especially now, is almost impossible, I would say, unfortunately. Yeah. If you write anything niche, if you write middle of the road, great. If you write niche, it gets harder and harder. And I see it even myself, right? Because I write niche stuff, and I'll like take everything that works amazing for people who write much more mainstream books, do it for myself, and my results are half of what my results would be for them. So really, I mean, there's a lot. If you're not doing super well with your books, you're like sitting there starting to maybe get down on yourself. It could be that you write something that's just harder to market. Um, and And while it doesn't like put money in the bank, it can at least make you feel better, a little bit better about yourself. Um, yeah, Jill's so along the lines of gamification though, Jill is doing that. Her Kickstarter newsletter does quests and citizen badges and stickers. People literally have like messaged or written to Jill and said, "What do I have to do to get this citizen badge?" So yeah, kind of a cool thing. Is now vibe coding a new ring system for us already? I can't vibe code. I'm talking. Can't vibe code and talk at the same time, honey. Also never vibe coded, so there's that too. Actually, no, I think I did it once. I had. I mean, if you get AI to make a PowerPoint presentation for you, is that vibe coding? I don't think so. Anyway, that's like I feel like that's like the best use for me of AI out of anything else because there's nothing in the world that I hate more than making a PowerPoint presentation. So if I can get AI to do that for me, I'm counting it as a win. Oh, Alexander, you haven't finished Outsystem yet? It's my book. You should be reading my book. Anyway, all right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We are little tiny islands. And I do worry that if we fragment, like that's kind of a concern. If we fragment and all build our own things, do we actually end up giving more power to the big organizations? Because size equals power and reach and scope. And if we're all fragmented, it gets harder and harder to do that. And then in addition, we sacrifice too much of our profit to the platforms that we use to get the word out there. You know, if we're running any sort of paid advertising, we're now giving part of our profit to those platforms. So we take the reach that Amazon gave us, we give that up, and then we have to pay somebody else for reach. You know, what if we could just become a big thing on our own and have our own reach? It's an exciting idea. All right. I do need to wrap up though. It's getting toward the end of an hour. We've been spitballing for a while, but it's been a really good conversation. Reading Driving While Black Forever changed my outlook as what I view as freedom. The phrase Gretchen Swarns use is mobility is freedom. I think that can be applied to the freedom and availability of books information too. I should read that book. That sounds really interesting. Jill put a link in here. I can't click this, but maybe you guys can. I'm guessing this is her citizen badge that she made. So, and that's, I guess, and that's gonna be something I'm gonna be working on more as my Kickstarter goes out, building this sort of like, you know, small bubble immersive universe. And that's the neat thing about doing a Kickstarter. It's one of the things I love the most about Kickstarter is it allows you to create a thing that's time limited, right? To a certain extent. You can make it go on if you want, but you're not committing to a forever. You're committing to, I'm going to build this thing in this bubble, 21-day bubble, whatever it might be. I'm going to make it really immersive and whatnot. And I don't have to worry about making it for everything. You're not trying to boil the ocean. It's such a great way to dip your toes into a lot of different things. Oh, look at that. You might have just picked up a new reader, Eric. Sure, you are. I mean, you're a teacher. You've got a lot going on, so I understand teachers do not have a wealth of spare time to be doing other things. So, but all right, I'm not going to forget this. Don't let me forget this idea because I forget things way too easily these days. But the ring idea, I think, could be it. You know, that could be the first step in us, you know, building our own larger thing that doesn't require us to just put our eggs in someone else's basket, you know, over and over again. So I'm stoked about this. This is great. Good talk, everyone. Good talk for sure. All right. Well, with that, I am going to bid you all farewell because I'm starving. Lunch with Mal does not involve lunch for Mal, as it turns out. But I will see all of you fabulous folks next week. Have yourselves a great weekend. And I hope that wherever you are, it's starting to warm up a little bit as well. Or if you're in Australia, I hope it starts to cool off. So anyway, we'll see you guys later. Have a great day. Bye.